Hello and welcome to horseshowjudges.com, our judge interview series today featuring professional judge Andrea Simons. My name's Dave Denniston. I'm the owner of both horseshowjudges.com and horseshowjudgesuniversity.com, and we're happy to have you joining us today to learn more about the great Andrea Simons. I want to start with a little bit of background about the Simons family. Andrea and her family are all involved in the horse industry. They established Simons Show Horses in 1977, sought to cultivate a breeding operation with bloodlines that were handpicked from some of the best stallions and mares the industry had to offer. The family has stood stallions like Jetalito, First Class, and Hot Scotch Man, but the program's crowning glory came in 1993 with a colorful colt named Zippo Sensation. The 1993 stallion, by Zippo Pine Bar and out of Satin and Lace, sired his first full crop in 1998. In over 20 years, Zippo rose through the APHA performance ranks, dominating nearly every category to become the most recognizable and decorated stallion in paint horse history. He was the APHA leading Breeders' Trust sire for 15 consecutive years, the only paint horse to be inducted into the NSBA Hall of Fame, and an Equistat $1 million sire. At the time of his death in 2016, at the age of 23, he had sired 956 registered foals, 469 of those had show records, 170 were world champions, and 162 reserve world champions, a number that continues to rise. In addition to the legendary Zippo Sensation, the Simons family bred and raised Original Cowboy, another great sire who has become yet another extremely influential horse in both the APHA and the AQHA. Outside of the legendary breeding program, the Simons family has established over decades in the industry, and Andrea and now her very successful daughter, Sarah, are both great horse show judges with years and years of experience. Horseshowjudges.com is glad to spend a bit of time with Andrea to learn more about her judging experiences, philosophies, and her advice for aspiring professional judges and much more. Thanks to Andrea for taking a bit of time out of your day to have a conversation with me. I know you're in the tail end of foaling season and you're still busy at the ranch and the farm, and I just appreciate you taking a little bit of time. So we've been friends for a long time. We've judged together many times, and you have always been a judge I look up to and I respect, and I appreciate you sharing some of your knowledge and experiences always, whether it be you and I in the judges' room or in this kind of format with people that are aspiring judges. So before I start asking you some questions and we get into a little conversation, is there anything more you would like to add to the previously mentioned about your background, experiences, the horse industry in general?
First, I'd like to thank you for having me. It's an honor, and I'm really excited about this format, the Horse Show Judges University. I think it's a great opportunity to learn, and I'm happy to be able to share a little bit of my experience with you.
That's awesome. Thanks. So I want to start with, I want this to be more of a conversation between you and I. So I want to start with some fun questions. Some background kind of questions, and then we'll get into more detailed questions about your advice in regards to specifically being a horse show judge. So you've been in the horse industry all your life. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in judging horse shows and why and when you decided that you wanted to become a horse show judge.
Sure. For me, it was almost organic. I was involved in 4-H, like, most of the kids that are raised with horses and stuff like that. Honestly, I was 10 before I had my first horse, so I had a little bit of a late start. But it was great guns after that. I did everything in 4-H that you could possibly do, ended up on judging teams. And then when I aged out, which is what happens to us poor people, then I became a judge and I coached judging teams. And I really enjoyed it. And I think, whenever I got old enough, I decided I can do this. And I think through that experience, for me, my path was 4-H, where for others, you now have universities and things like that, different programs and, FFA now, some other things. But for me, I made my way through the 4-H ranks, and at that point, there really, there really wasn't, on the other side of it, I became a horse trainer too while I was going to school. There was not much of an amateur program. So again, you're aging out of the youth, and you look around and you go, well, I guess I can train a horse as well as they can, so let's do this. And so my occupation and my vocation and my passion chose me as much as I chose it.
So from your experiences from being on a horse judging team and then maybe eventually coaching a competitive horse judging team situation, whether it be 4-H or collegiate, what was the next step for you? Did you start judging 4-H and open horse shows? And that's
Yes.
sort of
Yeah. All along, and I guess I omitted that, but all along I always judged the open shows. You can start doing that almost right out of high school. I grew up in South Florida, and I'd been in a network where I showed at all the open shows, and I was familiar with all, the management and things like that. So whenever I got old enough, they would call and say, would you like to have a try at this? And, you start with those open shows and you do some 4-H shows, and, it's a natural progression. Plus, I was training horses and things like that, which I think, if you can look at things from that aspect as well, you kind of have a leg up, right? Because you know what that feels like. I always tell people, when they're judging or when I'm schooling people to judge, and, we're looking at penalties or something, and, something tragic will happen in the trail, and they'll go, oh my gosh. And I'll say, you just got to come with penalty 1, penalty 3, penalty, and you feel that in your butt because you've rode those poles and you know what that feels like. So instead of, the drama of, oh my gosh, what happened? You're counting the penalties and you're assessing, the value of it and things like that. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand with, the whole judging scenario.
Do you remember when you were first started breaking into judging open and 4-H shows? Do you remember what your first kind of big show was for you? Was it a county fair or a state fair?
We had a local circuit around us. It was called Silver Spur, and I knew I had made it when I got to do the finals of that. That was big for me. So that was my, and they'd have a series of shows, and then you'd have to qualify, and then they'd have a finals. And when I got to judge the finals of the Silver Spur series, I thought, man, I can let's do this.
And that was in Florida?
Yeah, it was in Florida.
Okay. So overall, just kind of a fun question, over all the years that you've been judging, I'm curious, what's the funniest experience you've ever had judging a horse show, whether it be something an exhibitor did or something that happened during the horse show or with another judge?
So I have a standalone. And whenever there were 3 of us judging. It was myself, Susie Jean, and Jeff Malott. We were judging at the Silver Dollar in Las Vegas. And I'm going to tell you it was between 6-7 years ago, but who knows? But I can remember every detail like it was 5 minutes ago. And so the showmanship class, it was really big, and they'd bring them from the gate, and then they'd kind of do a loop and come up to the ring steward, kind of loop around, come to the ring steward and set up, and then we were beside the ring steward. And so this particular young lady came in, and she had on a pinkish outfit. She was a little heavier set. She had on a pinkish outfit, and as she turned around, she kind of pulled at it a little bit. She kind of pulled her pants up or whatever, and I thought, that's interesting. And so now she starts to trot. And as she trots and turns that corner, I look and I see she's got, usually the girls wear a camisole underneath, right? And I see this tannish looking camisole in between the pink jacket and the pink pants.
No.
That's an interesting color to put underneath there. And as she comes around and she stops in front of the ring steward, I realize that's skin. So she set up, and every time she goes to cross over, she tugs at her pants or whatever, and I can just barely. Now at the end of the pattern, she has to back up, and for whatever reason, she decided that she was going to give us a +10 backup, which there is no such thing, of course. She turned around and she whipped that horse backwards, and here they went.
Oh no.
And I mean, when she stopped, I guess gravity kept him on there somewhere, but yeah, her whole
Oh my gosh.
exposed. Well, I don't need to tell you. I started to laugh. You've heard me when I laugh. I start to snort and stuff like that. And then Gail Little, who was one of the ring stewards sitting with us, and Susie Jean and Jeff Malott. I mean, we just couldn't. And we tried so hard to get it back together. I really kind of felt sorry for the next 2 or 3 people that went, because it's so visual.
Right.
It is visual. Bless her heart. I mean, anyway, so that's probably my standalone. And whenever, we're goofing around or whatever, Jeff always reminds me of it. He always wants to know what the penalty is if you lose your pants. But
a wardrobe for sure.
It was huge. Yes. It's standalone for me.
Oh my gosh. That's
yeah,
fun.
you can't make that stuff up, right? I mean, it's just kind of like, watching the whole thing was a little surreal, like watching, how you watch those trains come right toward each other and you're going. Anyway, there you go.
So a little bit of change of topic, but being a horse show judge is not easy. Sometimes long days. We've spent some long days together.
Yes, we have.
Several days, and it could be exhausting and mentally exhausting and physically exhausting. But what do you like most about being a horse show judge? What keeps you going back? You've been doing this for a long time.
A very, very long time, right? A very long time. Something for me, of course, I have a passion. I love the horse industry. I love to be able to see those great horses, or maybe make an impression in somebody just starting out. I'm good with people asking questions. I know there's a protocol and things like that, but I kind of encourage it, because I think if you can help that person that's kind of starting out, I think to be inclusive rather than exclusive, you really, as a judge, really want to be inclusive, and you want to try, I'll always, if they make a change in a pattern or something, I'll always walk down and, say, are you sure you understand? I'll be glad to answer questions. And so for me, I love to see the great horses. I love to see the good horses. I love to help the people. I want to try to be encouraging. I mean, you don't want to blow something up that's not there, but if you can kind of encourage them along the way, or give them something positive, that's, I think to me, that's a lot of why I keep doing it. The whole judging scenario is, for me, it's a big puzzle, and you just have to put the pieces together. Yeah, sometimes fatigue, it's an issue. The fatigue is an issue, 28 days at Congress, you're a little fatigued at the end of it. But I think for me, like going into those, like if you're doing a huge show or whatever, on toward the end and you're getting to the finals and things like that, my adrenaline pops up, and I just, it just motivates me, and I just look at that gate and I know the next great horse is going to come through there. And, 10 days at the reining futurity, people say, how do you sit there and watch horse after horse? Well, I just know that next horse coming in that gate is going to be a great one. And so I guess I'm not an optimistic person by nature, but I'm very optimistic when it comes to the horses, because I really believe in this.
That's awesome. So I hate to put you on the spot, but you've judged horse shows literally all over the world. You've judged the biggest horse shows all over the world. Can you tell us about some of your most favorite shows to judge? Again, I hate to put you on the spot and names.
Right. And,
but
there's favorites for different reasons, some groups that you like to work with, and there's some, destinations and things like that. But the reason, I've worked really hard to perfect my craft. And I think to me that final knowing that you have arrived is when you do the World Show, AQHA World Show, the Reining Futurity, or the Congress. And I think those shows, just because of the greatness of the horses, are to me just, sometimes I say, why are they paying me? I should be paying them. It's so, I love it. And when I walk in that arena, I'm so geared up that, the fatigue goes away, and you see all those great horses, and I'm like, okay, let's fit this puzzle together. That's my thing. Let's fit this puzzle together. and see if we can't have the best outcome possible.
So maybe the question depends, would you agree with this? Maybe the question depends a little bit on your development as a judge, because years ago for you, that was was it the Silver Spur in Florida? Was that the name?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
A
So
few
that,
years ago.
yeah. So that maybe was
Yeah,
big
yeah.
at the time. So maybe it just
Right,
development over
right.
time as you
Yeah.
go through your career.
Yeah, and there's several circuits that are so much fun to judge. You know, another one that's really fun to judge is Florida in January. I mean,
Oh yeah.
who'd have thought, you know, a lot of us don't get to go to Florida in January. We are home freezing, doing menial things. And so the Gold Coast in Florida is fun. Arizona's Sun Circuit, Oregon, the circuit that they had Oregon in June, I believe, where you could raft up the river on a day off and stuff like that. Those are all, and they're high quality shows. They're so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pleasure.
So a lot of people watching this, Andrea, are aspiring. They're members of horseshowjudges.com. They're looking to, or they're starting to go through horseshowjudgesuniversity.com and aspiring to get a professional card at one point. What kind of general advice do you have for those folks? And you've served on judges committees for associations that approve judges. What kind of general advice do you have for someone who's aspiring to become a carded professional judge?
Well, I think that, you know, if you have the opportunity, you should probably go work for the best trainer that you can find that has an opening in their program. Because just from being with one of those top-notch trainers, getting to go to horse shows, getting to be around those horses, getting to develop your eye, there's really no substitute for that. Another thing in a perfect world you'd want to do is be a ring steward. I think, you know, there's so much information that you'll just accidentally roll across. I'm a talker when I judge. It relaxes me. So I no doubt that some of the, you know, ring stewards I've worked with have gotten the benefit or not of me just talking, just to work things out. You know, sometimes it helps, you know, especially when you get into the Western riding reining stuff, you know, you're schooled to talk those things out. Well, if you've scribed or you've worked with, you know, some trainers and you've been around the horse shows and stuff, I think everyone can go online now and get, you know, an education. There's so much stuff out there that's available, but there's no, I mean, that real life situational, that's the real deal.
And I know you know enough about me that I say that publicly all the time, because that's how I kind of started. Was I ring stewarded for you several times at the World Show.
I know.
And learned so much doing that. And I've said publicly, I could not have imagined applying for my judge's card having not had that experience.
Correct.
It's invaluable. You can study the rule book as much as you want.
Correct.
But having that show experience, sitting next to a professional judge, just being able to talk and visit and ask questions and is
I had forgotten you were a ring steward for a while. I just think of you as just a wonderful horse show judge. I do that now that you say that.
That was a few minutes ago, but I was a ring steward.
It was a few minutes ago. Yeah.
So one of the big questions that I get asked all the time, and I'm curious if you get asked the same thing and how you respond to it, is aspiring judges that don't already hold a judge's card. So maybe they hold an open judge's card in their state, or they have a 4-H card in their state, and they're looking to break into that association judge's level. And one of the questions I get often asked is, which card should I apply for first? And I think that everybody has a different opinion. I'm not sure one is right, one is wrong. I'm just curious what your opinion is, whether it's go with one of the smaller color breeds and kind of break in that way, or jump into it, study, get into one of the bigger associations. What do you think about that?
So this is what I tell people. My viewpoint is go where you're familiar. I mean, if you've shown paints all your life and you're familiar with the rules and you've been at those arenas and stuff like that, it's fine to start out there. I don't think that practicing on other associations necessarily, anymore. You can go to any of those. You can go to the Color Breed Council and go through the programs and things like that. But I think what I tell people is, if you've been involved in the Pintos, that's probably where you start. If you've shown Palominos, or if you've had an opportunity to work there, go. I think comfort has a lot to do with it. I think you're going to be comfortable. I've helped, we always have kind of a study group before the AQHA and APHA test. And I've helped a lot of people that, just started out with their painter, their quarter horse card, but they knew their stuff. They'd shown, they'd been around it. It just depends on, I think, you've got to judge a little bit of that open show stuff and things, and then you've got to find the comfort level and go with that.
I think that's good advice, because
Yeah.
I think you're right, because you're already going to be nervous enough, right? We were all there.
Correct.
Applying
Yeah.
for your first card, especially if
Mhm.
you have to go through interviews or a kind of,
Correct.
kind
Yeah,
of.
and to me, it's definitely, it's definitely a big help when you walk into an interview if you recognize even one person on a personal kind of a level. And that's where I think, going with your association that you're associated with might be a better plan. So, and it never hurts to get all the backup experience you can. Go judge those, little weekend shows. And I know that people have said to me, well, they're really hard to, to find those shows to do, but you aren't working hard enough if you aren't finding them. You've got to do that work, and having, like I say, we always do study groups before they go take their test because it's right around the corner. But, on the other hand, I've worked with some really, really capable people that think that, the rule book isn't a big deal. And so they can judge all the classes, and they're great horsemen. But there's a balance here. It doesn't matter how great a horseman you are. If you can't interpret the rules, you're no good to us. You're not helping us. So, and I think most of the people that, that you deal with are pretty serious, and they're good, they're students and stuff. But I know back when I used to try to help people before you were ring steward, if they wouldn't apply themselves to the rule book, if they just wanted to go judge, it doesn't work. It doesn't work if you don't have that backbone and that knowledge, because you have to get comfortable when you're in the arena. And the only way you can be comfortable is if you know those rules, or else you're a fool.
Definitely.
Nobody likes that.
No. So I want to ask you a procedural question. Again, everybody's different. Everybody has their own ways of doing things, their own ways of learning and handling things. But from a procedural standpoint, let's take the Western Pleasure, for example. Let's say you had 20, 25 exhibitors in a class in a big pen. What's your procedure as a judge? So do you watch say they come in at the jog? Are you writing down numbers? Are you watching the horses? Do you, what's your method? Because again, everybody's different.
Yeah, everybody has a different, and like I say, I can tell you what I do, and the next person can tell you something totally different. So if I'm in a class where I have to, if I have to rank all 20 horses, sometimes you'll get into those situations. I'll get their numbers at the gate because I need to make sure I get that all figured out. But if 20 horses come in and I only have to place 7 or 9, I usually don't write their numbers down.
Okay.
And what I do is, I'm an alpha character, so I usually get my corner. And, if you're in a multi-judge situation, the worst place you can be, obviously, in the pleasure is in the middle of the pen.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll pick a corner that I get to, and I like to see the horses come to me. So I'll shift sides, even if there's several judges in there. If you stand far enough back, you can shift sides and always see those horses coming towards you rather than looking at them from behind. And I've watched other judges that can look at them from behind, and I just can't. I want to see them. I want to see their expression. I want to see what's going on with their hands and stuff like that. So for me, I'll watch them jog in. If I see something bad when they jog in, just a bad move, or obviously if it's lame, you call your ring steward. Everybody knows that protocol. But if I see something, it's just a bad jogger or whatever, I'm going to probably put that number down.
Okay.
The bottom, like I kind of organized, it's going to go on the bottom there. And I'll know if it lopes its butt off, it doesn't jog. So I'll know that it got to stay at that bottom group, right? But pretty much what I do is I watch the first direction.
Okay.
And I'm not a big, like, I don't, I think when you look down, it's distracting. I mean, you need to keep that flow, and you need to, like, I'll move to, and I'll move in the direction of the horses, a little bit, so I can make sure and see everything. Like, worst thing you can do for me is just to, like, be looking and not have some kind of a, cyclical motion. You too much. And here's the other thing: no matter where you stand or what you do, where you stand or what your protocol is, you're going to miss something. It's just how it is. We've talked about that in the pleasure industry for years. Maybe we should sit outside. Maybe we should, you can only judge what you see. And so your job is to do the best you can do. So I'll watch them the first direction, and I'll keep some numbers in mind. And if I'm calling the class, I will always have them, like, walk a little bit and then reverse and walk. And when they do that reverse and walk, I'll start to organize, and I'll write those numbers that I have in my head, and I'll look around at that next group. And, so I'll kind of usually have, if there's 20 in there, I will usually have from 8 to 10 by the time they turn around. And then it's easy because the second direction, you can see the ones that only have one direction, or, and you've kind of got them, you can group them. A lot of people do that. And I just, like, for me, the only thing, mostly what I write on the first direction is not good. It's at that bottom bunch. But when they reverse, if you give yourself a little bit of time, and the more you judge, the better you get. So, I mean, for us that we do so many shows a year, we can keep 6 or 8 numbers in our head, write them down, organize them, but take advantage of that. Not much really goes wrong when they're reversing. So to me, that's the best opportunity you have to get your stuff organized. And if you're calling and you reverse them, let them walk a minute. Get yourself organized. Mm-hmm. I mean, exhibitors appreciate walking too, right? Mm-hmm. He really loves when a judge, says reverse and then trots or lopes them off. We don't, as exhibitors, we don't love that. So I think that's a good opportunity to get a lot of your stuff organized. And then, if I'm calling, I want to see them lope first and then jog, because the jog is a little slower pace, kind of get things organized, double check things, and, things like that. And I think if you're organized and you're systematic about it, you're less likely to have error. If you have an error, you're at least able to back it up by having, some kind of an organized thought process and getting it down on paper.
So it sounds like I brought up the pleasure, obviously, for a reason, because classes like the pleasure, the hunter under saddle, and the halter, we don't have a scoring system.
Correct.
That's why I mentioned everybody's system is a little bit different. I'm always curious to hear and learn from how people do things. It sounds like you and I are pretty similar in the fact that we're a little bit blessed in the fact that we can remember numbers.
Correct.
Some really struggle with numbers, especially if a 4-digit number show and the horses are coming in quickly. And so I tell people you just have to come up with a system that works for you.
Yeah. And when and I have that problem with 4-digit numbers. I always have. The other side of that 4-digit number is you're pretty far up the food chain when you get a 4-digit number at your horse show.
Right.
So at that point, water finds its own level. And so if you're judging a horse show that has consistently 4 digits, I know I'll judge some horse shows mostly up in the kind of Midwest, where they want to use their Congress number because it's their badge of honor. And so you'll have a whole bunch of, this is 169 and 182, and then you'll have 1687 or whatever, because they want to use their number that they had at the Congress. That's a little annoying for me. Right. But, for the most part, if you're dealing with a lot of 4-digit numbers, you've been there and done that.
Right.
You'll figure it out. Some of this stuff, it's just got to play out. This judging thing isn't for everyone. And there have been people that have thought, I'm going to give this a try. And then they just say, this is not fun for me.
Too stressful,
pretty thick skinned. You've got to be able to be convicted, and you've got to be, you've got to be razor sharp at all times, and you've got to be convicted. And if you want to be popular, this isn't your job. You're going to have hard calls to make. I mean, I want to be respected more than I want to be well liked. You know, I want people when I go in the arena, they don't have to love me, but they do have to respect me. If they don't respect me, then what's, you know, what's the point?
I commonly say in a class of 20 or 25 exhibitors, you're going to leave that class and you'll have one friend. That's it.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
it. So
Yep.
if you're in it to
Yeah.
make friends, it's
Yeah.
probably not
Well, and it goes
reason.
to, you know, it goes to integrity a little bit, you know, you know, your basic structure. I have some friends that are just too nice. And I like kind of, you know, sometimes I'm like, you just can't, you just, this is not the business for someone who's too nice, really. They've got to be able to make those hard calls.
And you have to be okay with it.
People, we do know some people that are nice and do this job. Let's not say that we're not that way, but
Right.
you know, you've got to be razor sharp, and you've got to be on this game. You have to be on this game. So.
What are some of your favorite classes to judge, or your favorite or favorites? Top one, top three. What do you?
You know, I guess I would have to go back to my roots, which was, you know, the pleasure and the I love good halter, and I think that if you can judge that, you know, that top end of halter, it makes you very hireable too. I mean, they are, you know, those major shows are always looking for someone who doesn't shy away from the halter, and I grew up around it, so I'm pretty comfortable with the halter. I love a good halter class. Now, that's not to say that on those weekend shows, I just don't look at them and think, oh my goodness, you know, let's see if we can get this sorted through and get this over with, you know. But at a good horse show, I love the halter and the Western Pleasure and Hunter Under Saddle. You know, that's kind of my roots. And I'm always rooting for those people. So I guess those are probably some of my favorite. I like showmanship a lot and horsemanship. You know, I like those classes. I always like to do clinics and stuff with that group, because you can make a difference and you can make them better. And, you know, if you judge them well, they are, you know, hopefully encouraged and they want to go on. And so those classes too.
Okay. So I've already taken up a lot of your time, but I appreciate it. And we've talked a lot about you as a professional horse show judge, but now just so people can get to know you just a little bit better, I want to ask you some sort of fun questions.
Okay.
About what you do outside of the horse industry. So if you weren't in the industry that you were in, if you weren't in the horse industry at all, what do you think you'd be doing?
Well, when I was in school, I really, you know, I was really geared toward the law. There's a lot of that in my family. I would probably be an attorney, I would hope, or I would be an educator. I love that too. You know, I would have been either one of those two, I think would probably have been my path.
So your other daughter, Jana, is kind of taking that route for you?
She is. I'm so proud of her. She's
Very,
just amazing. You know, she's got all kinds of initials behind her name. So
very successful attorney in Dallas. She's still in Dallas, correct?
she is.
Yes.
She is.
Who do you look up to most in the horse industry? Who are some of your...
You know, I mean, I think that I guess I would have to it depends on where, you know, what. Okay, so let's go down the list. I look up to Alex Ross. I think when I was coming along and judging those things, he was a person I could pick up the phone and call, and he always had the answer.
Sure.
And he always made me, you can do this, you know, just this is what it, you know. So I really admire somebody like him. On the business side, you can't help but admire my neighbors, Jason and Charlie, because they have done such a good job of marketing, getting people excited. I mean, to me, they are the most dominant factor in changing the trail in the Western riding from when I was a kid, and you just clumped over things. And, you know, I mean, those guys changed the game, went out there and said, I'm going to get this best horse. It's going to be a trail horse. And, you know, so I really admire them for their tenacity and ability to do that. I admire Diane Eppers. I mean, she took a slightly failing organization and made it like the be all and the end all.
Right.
Crazy. And I think I could go on and list people, but like those are kind of some that kind of come to mind for different various reasons, right?
Sure. What do you do in your spare time?
So in my spare time, I still really, I don't, you know, I'm not a big show person. I did show some this year, obviously, but I really like the mares and the babies. So this time of year, that takes up a lot. I mean, I call that my spare time. Um, and I like things when they kind of quiet down and I can just go out there and not be pressured. You know, when you live where you work and you work where you live and stuff, I'm just kind of on call all the time. And with Sarah training here and things are just on go all the time. So I really like my quiet time with my babies. In an ideal world, I would travel. That's, you know, a little tough. And I love to shop. What woman doesn't? You know, I love to shop, right?
Yes, I do know that.
I could have, that's another thing. I could have been a personal shopper in another life. There you go.
So speaking about travel, if you could go on vacation anywhere in the world, where would you?
You know something, I have been so blessed to be able to travel almost everywhere in the world. I figure I've been on every continent except Antarctica, judging a show. So there you go. I mean, who gets paid to travel like that, right? The one place that I haven't been to that I'd really like to go to is New Zealand.
Okay.
Hook me up, anyone.
There you go.
I don't know. That just looks so, you know, New Zealand looks neat. And you know, I have friends in Australia. I've been to Australia a lot of times. Oh, I'll get you to New Zealand. It has evaded me. I've been all over the world. New Zealand, you don't want me? What? So I might have to buy a ticket and go down there and just vacay, right?
Well, any Kiwis out there, now you know. Andrea's available.
Yeah, there you go. But I mean, I think my ideal vacation is someplace warm. Your Colorado winter does nothing for me. I don't want to go to Alaska. I love tropical things. I grew up in South Florida, right? So anyway, send me someplace tropical. If I could, I would go, you know, to all those destinations where it's warm and you drink pina coladas and you raft down the lazy river. That's my idea of perfection.
It's the middle of April here in Colorado. 2 days ago, we had 13 inches of snow. But yesterday, it was 50, almost 55 degrees and sunny.
It's insane. I'm telling you.
It's weird.
Global warming. I'm just, you know, I'm on that bandwagon. I'm not big for what we've done to our environment. And I think you're going to just see more of those crazy weathers, you know, swift changes and the disasters that we get, you know, the natural disasters we get, the tornadoes, the flooding,
strange deal.
It is. And you know, the longer I live, the more I think I remember as a kid not having all these, you know, natural disasters and catastrophes and stuff like that. But
yeah.
I have to get a handle on that. I don't know that being in the horse business helps any, but I have to think about my carbon footprint.
I'll do what we can.
Yeah.
Last fun question. If you could have dinner with any two people in the world, living or dead, who would they be or have been?
So I think that, so my degree in school, yes, I do have a degree, was in political science and history. So I'm a big podcaster and I read a lot of history. I'm that geek person, right? So I would say I would love to have dinner with John F. Kennedy. Wouldn't, right? But the other person that fascinates me, and when Jana was doing her upper degree after law school, she was at Georgetown, and I had the opportunity to go to the Supreme Court and see Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh, wow.
You know, I've read the books about her and stuff like that, and you know what she accomplished when women were supposed to be at home, you know, making dinner and stuff like that. Those would be my two guests.
I think we talked about at the last horse show, you and I were talking about the movie that she was featured in recently that was Netflix or something else.
Yeah.
Interesting person.
Yeah. She is very, very interesting. So, and you know, politics aside, you know, and I think right now, you know, our country's so divided politically and things like that, but politics aside, you have to appreciate that woman for what she achieved when she achieved it, and her tenacity and her ability to endure. So she's been up for a long time.
Well, I'd like to be a fly on the wall during that dinner party. That would be
a fun dinner party, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So Andrea, you're a good friend. I appreciate your support of horseshowjudgesuniversity.com as a comprehensive educational online judges seminar. Wonder what last advice you would have for people that are trying to be where you are, trying to be a successful horse show judge, spend decades in the industry, be successful. Any last advice?
Yeah, what I tell people is, when you get to the point where you judge a horse show, you're going to be tasked with making thousands of decisions in one day. And no doubt at some point you will make a mistake, you will fail. But you have got to learn from that, got to take that, turn it into a positive. And the other thing that I tell people all the time is if you do make a mistake, you've got to put it away and move forward. Because if you don't, you won't get the rest of that horse show judged well. You've got to endure, you've got to have tenacity, you've got to have the strength of your opinion, but you have to be kind, humble, and caring, because in this industry, we have got to encourage people to keep going.
It's great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you for being our special guest on the horseshowjudges.com judge interview. I both appreciate your support, your friendship, and hopefully we'll be judging again together soon. I love judging with you, so we'll see you soon down the road, I'm sure.
I'm always available when you're on hand. That's all I can say. Thank you so much for having me. This was a whole lot of fun, and I hope that somebody gets something to take away from it.
Thanks so much, Andrea.
Take care.